you get to a beautiful, great colonnade. Okay, so the columns, as you can see, are built here on both sides. But because it was the first time to build columns of stone, he also was inspired by making the columns of papyrus reeds. So it looks like bundles of papyrus reeds put together. It's made of stone, yeah? And he was not sure about how strong the columns are. Will they support the ceiling, or they will be weak and the building will collapse? As he was not sure, he decided to attach each one of the columns to the wall behind by building a little wall here. Yeah? Doing so, he created niches. You got it? Can you imagine it? Yeah? So he built the colonnade first, and he attached each one of the columns to the wall behind. So created like niches. And he managed to make the number of those niches to be 42. Why 42? What is the significance of 42? 42 is the exact number of counties, provinces, nomes, states, call it whatever you like, yeah, of Egypt. In the ancient time, not now. In the ancient time, Egypt was divided into 42 nomes, and each one of them had a local god. Right? So Amun, for example, was the god of Luxor. So what they do, he was very clever. He will bring statues of the local gods and place each one in one of those shrines. Okay, so when the king is walking by the colonnade, he is welcomed by the statues of the gods as if they are showing their loyalty to him and encouraging him to be re-elected, saying that we are supporting you, we are with you, yeah, we give you our votes, don't worry. And at the same time, he's showing respect to all the gods and greeting them before he goes to the great court for the festival or for the political festival. So this is like two examples, the ceiling and the columns, how they were shaped to be very much similar to the time before building of stone. We've seen the plan of the mastaba. I just want to show you also a real mastaba. Yeah? Building the step mastaba was about 2700 BC. Okay. It took about 100 years until 2600 BC, when the ancient Egyptians managed to build the first full, complete pyramids. Okay? They had to work hard, they had to try, they had to make mistakes and learn from mistakes. So this is an example of just a single mastaba. The guy was not that advanced to build something more than this, so it's just a mastaba. Okay. That's the full pyramid. That's the plan of the full pyramid. 2600 BC, on the throne of Egypt was a king called Honi, and Honi was the last king of the third dynasty, which was founded by Zoser. Honi had no sons, so one of the high officials, Senefru, got married to his daughter, and Honi was building his tomb or his pyramids as a step pyramid, but the steps were much bigger than those of Saqqara in Maydun. So as you can see, that's a big step, and then a smaller step, and then a smaller step. So that's what we call the pyramid of Maydun by King Honi. Honi died, his pyramid was unfinished. So King Senefru, his son-in-law, decided to complete his pyramids, the pyramid of his father-in-law, showing gratuity for making him the pharaoh, because if he hasn't got married to his daughter, then he wouldn't be the pharaoh of Egypt. Yeah? So he finished the building of Maidun, but it seems not to the very end, because he was busy and concerned about building his own. So he went north of Maidun to a place called Dahshur, which is quite close to Saqqara and Giza, and he started building his own pyramids. Now I want you to look at this part of the pyramid, and back to the other slide, this one. So still the same plan, one big step. When they were building this one, they made a mistake with the angle, because the angle was 54 degrees. And they realized that they will never finish it, because they will have to keep going up until they close the building. So they halfway through they had to change the angle to make it nearly 45 degrees. So it looks like a thin pyramid, as you can see. He didn't like it. So he is learning now. He got the right angle. So he moved 2 kilometers south, like less than a mile, and started building his complete pyramid, the correct one. This pyramid, ladies and gentlemen, looks very much like Giza. Yeah? But actually it's called the Red Pyramid, and officially it is the first real pyramid on earth. Yeah? Not Giza. Okay, what is the connection between this guy and the guys of Giza? This one, Senefru, the builder of the 2 pyramids of Dahshur, and the one who completed the one of his father-in-law, so he built like 3 pyramids within his lifetime, gained experience, was the father of Khufu, Cheops, the builder of the greatest pyramid of Giza. That one of the son of the other one. So the son Khufu, or Cheops, when he came to the throne, he inherited a very well-trained, talented team of architects and engineers who learned a lot over the last couple of decades and allowed him to build the most sophisticated pyramids in ancient Egypt until now, the most advanced. Dimensions of the pyramid, very briefly, I don't like to talk numbers, but just to imagine what I'm talking about. The height of the pyramid to the top is 146 meters, and it has 4 sides, so each side is 230 meters long. The estimated number of the blocks of limestone used in building that pyramid is 2,300,000 blocks of limestone. 2,300,000 blocks of limestone, weighing average of 2.5 tons each. 2.5. At the base, they were much bigger blocks, average of 15 tons. Towards the top, they are smaller ones, so the smallest was 1 ton. If you calculate the average for that number, it will be 2.5 tons. It took about 22 to 24 years till the building was completed. And the description was given by the early Greek traveler, early Greek historian Herodotus, who mentioned that 100,000 people were involved in building that great pyramid. He visited Egypt about 500 BC. We're not sure about the number, but it gives us a very good idea. People always admire and ask, how did they manage to cut the blocks? How did they manage to move the blocks? How did they manage to bring them up? How did they manage to design? But you always forget to ask something very important, which is, how did they manage 100,000 people working in that part of the business, and everyone getting up in the morning knowing exactly what he's supposed to do? It's people management, which is one of the most difficult things we talk about nowadays in the 21st century. Imagine if you're running a company with 100,000 people working for you. So even with the technology like emails and fax and cell phones and all this stuff, it's very difficult to communicate with them. So imagine talking about that large number of workers. And where to accommodate them, how to feed them, what sort of kitchen we're talking about, what sort of catering we're talking about. We don't expect these guys to work and halfway during the day they have like a lunch hour and go to McDonald's and order something to eat. Yeah, definitely not. So they need like a logistic staff to provide them with food, not just food, medical care. Talking about a working site, 100,000. Dealing with blocks of stones, moving. Imagine the accidents, imagine the death rate, imagine plagues, imagine disease, imagine whatever. So, how did they manage all this? Question, have they used slaves in building the pyramids? The answer, definitely no. How can, think about it. If they used slaves, 100,000 slaves, working in this open area, you need guards to look after the slaves and guard them. So how many thousands do you need of guards to guard and control 100,000 of these big crowds, yeah, who are willing to sacrifice their own life just to run away? They will give it a try. If we can make it, we can make it. If not, we die. Yeah, you know, we are slaves. We don't have a life. So if we just give it a try, like prisoners when they run away from prisons. The same concept, they might get shot and die. Anyway, the pyramid, ladies and gentlemen, was built with love, because we have to understand the mentality of the Egyptians, not nowadays, thousands of years ago, when they worshipped the king. Not worship the king as a god, because it might be a bit difficult to understand this, but they had a great respect to the king, and they believed that the king was their link to the gods. The king was the one recognizing them for the afterlife, bringing them back to the afterlife, telling the gods that these guys were good guys. So imagine a great honor to be working among the team, building something for your god king. Yeah? What a great honor. I always give this example. It's just an example. It hasn't happened to me, but imagine I'm a freelance working in Egypt, and I got an email from Queen Elizabeth, and said that I'm coming to Egypt, I've heard about you, and I would like you to be my guide. What a great honor. Queen Elizabeth is not a goddess. Queen Elizabeth is not my queen, but she is a very famous figurehead. So it's a great honor to choose me. It means that damn good. Yeah? So I'll be honored to show everyone. Well, guys, you see, Queen Elizabeth is coming to Egypt, and she asked me personally to be her guide. What a great honor. The same thing happened in Egypt on a bigger scale. I am one of the artists. I am one of the builders who's chosen to be among the team building the tomb for the Pharaoh. I am among the people who will be first recognized by the king in the afterlife. So you have to understand this to understand how the work was done. Early 20th century, when we thought about theories how they built the pyramids, we thought of forming a ramp of sand on one side, getting the stone and so on, but we calculated how long the ramp would be to go up to 146 meters, and it should be like 8 kilometers long. It's a long way. So do you realize that no, definitely it doesn't work. So now they developed this theory, and they said that we had 4 ramps on 4 sides. It's like going in a circle, going higher and higher from level to another. And they were building from bottom to top. And when they finish, the whole building would be covered in sand. So they had to remove the sand from top to bottom this time. And they were very clever, because while they were removing the sand, going down this time, they were covering the pyramid from outside with a finer quality of limestone. The fine casing of the pyramid covered it from top to bottom. It's a shame that most of it is gone, but we can see on the top of the second pyramid we have still a small part of it salvaged. So that's the casing of the pyramid, and it was made of a better quality of limestone. The limestone for building the pyramids came from local area, not far from the Sphinx, but while this better one covering the outside brought from the eastern desert, from across the river Nile. So it was a long way, but they had to do this because it's a better quality. And then now, you can understand that after 100 years, they were learning how to choose what is the best quality, what can they do for building, what can they do for decoration, and so on. Back to the Great Pyramid, because as I said, this is the most sophisticated, and there are lots of rumors about it, lots of stories and stuff like this. When the inside of the pyramid was discovered by Giovanni Belzoni. Giovanni Belzoni was an Italian traveler, and he was quite lucky because he discovered the inside of the pyramid, and he discovered also Abu Simbel. So, shame to say that he carved his name, Giovanni Belzoni, inside the burial chamber and inside Abu Simbel. But anyway, that might give us an idea about the plan. That's the entrance here. And we notice that there is a corridor going down. Yeah, this corridor here is going down to the original burial chamber, which is underground. Okay? So you see, what you see here is a very good example of how they were learning, how they were developing their knowledge. Yeah? So when they built the pyramid at the beginning, they had the normal shaft underneath. But halfway through the buildings, they realized that it is much better if they can move the burial chamber to be above ground, inside the pyramid itself. So they built this one here, which is known now as the Queen's Chamber. The Queen's Chamber. Why? Because by mistake we thought, because we have two tombs, or two burial chambers inside the pyramid, so one of them was for the Queen. But that's wrong, because we discovered the pyramid for the queens next to the pyramid of the king later on. But it's still known as the Queen's Chamber. And then more studies led them to the fact that it is even better if they move it higher up towards the center, so they built the King's Chamber. This one here, right in the center. Okay. And because they were expecting heavy weight of the stone on that empty space of the burial chamber, so they were very clever. They formed those 5 levels of small chambers to reduce the pressure on the ceiling or the roof of the burial chamber. Amazing. Inside. So that's the corridor going up, and this is what we call Grand Gallery, yeah, and leading at the end to the King's Chamber or the main burial chamber, and those are like air shafts. Maybe you read something about the air shafts. Over the last 10-15 years, group of Egyptologists, they designed little robots. It's a German one actually, and they send it into that air shaft and trying to discover things, and then they found that blocking the way is a little door, and they had to design a smaller robot to go from underneath the door, and they found another door that's through the air shaft. It's amazing, but we are afraid to move even one block from inside because we don't know the structure of the pyramid. We might cause the collapse of the whole building, so leave it as it is. And maybe you can see some programs on television, Discovery Channel or History Channel, whatever, and we see our head of antiquities, Professor Zay Hawass, with the cowboy hat, is always on TV. He was the one in charge of the pyramid site, and now he's the head of the Department of Antiquities. So he is involved in such things that I don't really agree with him most of the time, because I think it causes damage to the monuments, like the scanning the mummy of Tutankhamun. Well, we know that he was the son of Akhenaten now. It's not a great deal, but it definitely caused damage to the mummy, which was in a very poor condition, so I think it was not that important. When they were building the pyramids, ladies and gentlemen, I can spend the rest of my life talking about the pyramids of Egypt, but I'm just trying to make it short and sweet, and we have lots of things to talk about as well. When they were building the pyramids like Giza, They had no time to decorate them from inside. And we expect a massive building like this, take about like 25 years. You have no time to decorate it from inside. But later on, about like 300, 400 years later, we're talking about like 2300 BC, 2200 BC, towards the fall of the empire of the Old Kingdom, when kings became very weak and not great kings like Cheops or Chephren or Mykerinos, the builders of the 3 pyramids of Giza. They were building very, very poor pyramids. That's Pyramid of Unas, one of the kings of the 5th dynasty, and it looks like this from outside. It's very poor. But Unas is quite unique. Why? Because it was the very first pyramid with the burial chamber decorated. So they started the decoration. They didn't spend much time or effort in building outside, but they spent most of the time decorating inside. That's an example, and I have another example here. That's another pyramid, believe it or not. That's the outside. It looks like a sand dune or something like that. And the inside, look at the inside. So it's amazing. Yeah. So each one of those pyramids has its own speciality, either it's beautiful from outside or beautiful from inside. We're talking about the 6th dynasty. King Seti is the 6th dynasty, which is towards the end of the Old Kingdom. After the fall of the Old Kingdom, we had what we call the Dark Period, the first intermediate period, when it was like a chaos and was disrespect to the royal families, and everything was upside down, and many of the tombs, if not even all of them, being robbed. So the treasures of the great pharaohs being stolen by thieves. And they believe that this is why they should change the building from leaving a big pyramid as a landmark. They should hide the pyramids, or they should hide the tombs. So they changed to build, that's the Middle Kingdom. After the first intermediate period, they had the Middle Kingdom, and they were cutting the mountains and forming tombs so they can hide the entrance, and that's it. So they can use actually the shape of the mountain as a pyramid, and they create the tombs from inside. So this is how it looks from outside, and this is from inside. It's even much better than the decoration of the pyramid. So this is an example from the Middle Kingdom, and it told us a lot about their daily life as well. Then after that, they built the tombs also as rock-cut tombs in the New Kingdom, the Valley of the Kings, and here you can see example of the colors. Those who are going to Egypt soon, inshallah, you will enjoy these beautiful colors. We still have these colors in the Valley of the Kings, not just pictures. These are real colors in the Valley of the Kings and also in the Valley of the Queens. So they spend most of the time decorating inside. And at the Valley of the Kings, the tombs were built of, or cut out of the limestone mound. So if we talk about pyramids, which is very important, temples, which is very important. When they were building the pyramids at Giza, they were building temples as well. And this temple is one of the very early temples in Egypt. And just to remember this, that's the Valley Temple. The Valley Temple of what? The Valley Temple of the 2nd Pyramid of Giza, which is located next door to the Sphinx. Yeah? Next door to the Sphinx. Each one of the pyramids we have in Egypt was a complex. The pyramids, a mortuary temple, a valley temple, and a causeway between the two temples. The valley temple for mummification. So they take the body to be mummified in the valley temple, and then they carry the mummy into the causeway until they reach the mortuary temple for the last offerings and last rituals like burning incense and so on, and then they take it inside the pyramid. So each pyramid should be part of a complex of 4 elements, two temples, one pyramid and one causeway. So that was the Valley Temple of King Chephren which was built of limestone, and the decoration was very plain, that they covered the inside and outside with blocks of granite. Okay, so that's the plan of the Valley Temple, which is about 4,600 years old. Very simple. That's the entrance, and that's the sanctuary, yeah? And we see the courtyard, which is what we have here. Okay. Then we move to something much more sophisticated, which is Karnak. Karnak, by the way, is the largest ancient monument of the ancient civilization of mankind. Karnak. Amazing. Karnak should be definitely one of the wonders of the world. Actually, only one section of Karnak could make it very well to be one of the wonders of the world, not the whole of Karnak. Only the great hypostyle hall, the whole of columns. This one here. So look at the plan. I want you to go back to this one. Look at very easy, simple plan, and then move into a very sophisticated one. With the lake, that's the sacred lake, that's Karnak, and that's the way down to the temple of Luxor. Yeah? When we talk about festivals in Egypt, we'll talk thoroughly about this because it was one of the most famous festivals. Those are pylons, and they were built of stone. Everything is built of stone. They were forming like entrances and facade of the temple. They were always building from inside out. When they were building temples, they were always building from inside out. So they come to the innermost section, which is the sanctuary, and they build it first. Then they carry on adding sections. Building tombs or pyramids even was like individual work. It's just for one king. So if the king is dead and the project is not finished yet, then they have to use it unfinished. This is why many of the tombs, either in the Valley of the Kings, the Middle Kingdom or wherever, were left unfinished. But when we talk about temples, the temples were the house of God, so they were like national projects. No matter who was upon the throne, maybe I start the project and then I die, then my successor, whoever the successor was, son, grandson, or cousin, or even someone else, would have the great honor to carry on the project, because he's not building for me, he's building for his God, to have the honor to have his name written somewhere in the temple or the house of God. So that's just an idea about Karnak, and I have some pictures for the inside of the great hypostyle hall. Karnak is very different from the other temples. Each one of the temples had a hypostyle hall with a hall of columns where the columns are supporting the ceiling. But Karnak is very different because can you imagine the size of the columns here? And those are windows to allow beams of light because it was roofed, so it was dark. So they designed those windows here to allow beams of light so they can use reflection on polished metals for the light so they can illuminate inside. The number of columns here is 134. 134 columns. The second largest temple in Egypt after Karnak got 36 columns. So you see the difference? 36 and it's big enough. Yeah? And Karnak is 134. So the great hypostyle hall, which is only one part of Karnak, could make it as one of the wonders of the world easily. Easily. Yeah? That's the main entrance. This is the pylon, what I told you about, the entrance, and like the main entrance in between the two towers. This is the avenue of the Sphinx. Yeah? We have two avenues of Sphinx in Luxor. This is one of them, and the statues got like ram heads because they were dedicated to the ram-headed god Amun-Ra. That's like a picture from an aeroplane for the site. It's not a satellite image because that's an old one. And it shows here that red one is the old part of Karnak, which is dated back to the Middle Kingdom when the god Amun was just the local god. And the rest, all what's stretching here, and even the lake, all this is new kingdom. So it started here, and then we carried on afterwards. Later, after Pharaonic Egypt and the Greeks came to Egypt, they were Ptolemies and the Roman emperors were very influenced by the Egyptian history and religion, and they realized that religion was the most important subject, and they said that it's the best way to gain the Egyptians to our side. That was like the advice of Alexander the Great. Very smart guy, realized that you cannot actually fight the Egyptian religion. They are very strong, the priests are very strong, so better to gain them to our side. So make them happy. He made himself the son of the gods, Amun-Ra, and he started building temples, visiting and so on. So he died very young, and then all his successors did the same thing. So what we call Edfu is a Greco-Roman temple. Right. That's different from Pharaonic temple. Greco-Roman temple is much later. Yeah, so we're talking about like 2,000 years old. Started about like 300, 200 BC, building what is known as Greco-Roman temple. But there is a very important thing we need to know about the Greco-Roman temples. Although they are called Greco-Roman temples, they were built by Egyptians. The builders were Egyptians, materials were Egyptian, the engineers and architects, the priests were Egyptian, the gods worshipped in those temples were Egyptian. The only difference that the king who was upon the throne was Greek or Roman. That's it. That's why we call it Greco-Roman temple. Right? So Edfu is the best example of a complete temple. It's the most well-preserved temple in Egypt. Not the most ancient, not the largest, but it's the most well-preserved temple in Egypt, and here you can see the plan. That might give us a very good idea about the entrance, then an open court, and the open court was mainly for making the offerings. So they enter here, and then they move the offerings. They offer everything: food, drinks, animals, birds, gold, silver, whatever. They never had human sacrifice. And then after they finish, they go into the hypostyle hall. Look at the size of the hypostyle hall comparing to the one of Karnak. This one got only 18 columns, yeah, and it's big. It's big. And the temple is getting smaller, the second hypostyle hall. The ceiling is lower, the floor is higher. And then leading to an antechamber, vestibules, and then the sanctuary with the Holy of Holies, this one here in the middle. Now, I want you to imagine with me that this plan will draw a line here, and will draw another line here, so it will look like a pyramid. You got it? That's the top of the pyramid here. Yeah? The top of the pyramid is where they imagine the sun god, the solar disk, and the sides of the pyramids where the sun ray is giving protection to the mummy. Here, the top of the pyramid is the sanctuary where we have the statue of the local god doing exactly the same thing like the main god, giving protection to the whole thing here. Okay? So this is the plan of Edfu, and you can see the inside of Edfu. It's a massive thing, and it's beautiful. Got remains of colors and lots of figures. That's the open court, and that's the entrance. We are now inside the temple, yeah? And you can see the decoration here carved on the stone. Something very important influenced the building of temples, that at the beginning of creation, or at the beginning of civilization, they tried to explain creation, how life started on earth. And they said that water was everywhere, it was a great ocean, and something appeared from this water, which was the top of a mountain, the highest mountain. And on the top of the mountain, which is called Ben Ben, it's like a small pyramid, a big bird landed on that mountain and left a big egg. From that egg was the creation of the different creatures. The story is very similar to a story mentioned in the Old Testament and in the Quran about the great floods and the ark. And it's amazing when you know that the name of the god of water was Noon. Noon, similar to Noah. Very similar. And the story is very similar. So that egg was the ark. Right. So when they built the temples, they surrounded the temples by an enclosure wall. You see this mud brick wall, an enclosure wall. And when they designed this wall, it was formed like waves. You cannot see it here because this is badly wrong, but the original plan would be like waves. The enclosure wall forming the ocean. Yeah? And the temple itself is rising from the ocean. Everything in ancient Egypt had a meaning. Yeah? Everything had an explanation. So the temple itself is the Ben, the beginning of creation. And back again to the hypostyle wall, they were forming the marshes of the delta, the papyrus and the lotus, and this is where the life started on earth as they believed. So it's representation of life. So this is, ladies and gentlemen, an idea about the evolution of construction and how they developed building tombs and developed building temples and how they managed to change the material used and the ideas were developed. Of course, when we come to talk about Greco-Roman Egypt, it's towards the end of the civilization. It's getting weaker and weaker. The Greeks were following the steps of the Egyptians, but the Romans didn't do the same thing. The Romans were dealing with Egypt as another part of the Roman Empire, and it was like the granary of Rome, and they treated the Egyptians like slaves, badly treated, and collecting tax and suffering a lot and so on. So lots of uprising and revolutions and bloodshed and so on. So it was not the best time, and then Christianity was introduced, then changed the mentality, became a Christian country, and then an Islamic country. So all these monuments were neglected over the years, and the problem was that most of them were built along the River Nile, and when they were used in ancient Egypt, they used to protect them from the Nile by building coffer dams in front of the sites, and also digging irrigation canals to take the water away from the sites. Just in case if the water damaged part of the temple or whatever, they can restore it after the flood season. But when the religion changed to Christianity and later to Islam, nobody cared about looking after these monuments. I mean, there was not a concept of ancient history or monuments or whatever, you know, it's all buildings. So they were left to be flooded, and it was silting up. So many of the temples were covered under silt after many years. So in the 19th century and the 20th century, most of the sites were discovered by digging the silt up and clearing the whole area. So it took many years to do so, and we still believe that there are many things still buried underneath. Yeah? So as usual, I say that maybe if you have any questions about this topic, I'm glad to get your questions. If you have any question?
I have one. I wasn't here last night, so I'm not sure if you mentioned this, but is the Sphinx a mastaba?
Well, the Sphinx is not a mastaba. The Sphinx is one piece of stone, and actually it was very clever to have that statue, the form of the Sphinx, because when they finished building the first pyramid of Khufu, they were using that area where the Sphinx is as the quarry. And then his son came later, and he was building his pyramid next door to his father. And where the Sphinx is, where was the leftover of the limestone quarry for his father, was supposed to be the Valley Temple. This one I told you about. This Valley Temple here, it's located next door to the Sphinx. So it's part of the complex. And he thought that if he would leave that ugly piece of stone there, it would spoil the whole image. So they thought of forming something out of it, and they couldn't find anything better than the Sphinx. What is the meaning of the Sphinx? The Sphinx is a figure used in ancient Egypt for one of the main gods, the sun god. His name was Ra-Horakhti. Ra, the sun god. Horus, the falcon. Akhti means horizon. So it's a unification of Ra and Horus in the horizon. The form of the statue is human head, for the intelligence of the human being, which is the same features of Chephren, Khaifra, the builder of the second pyramid, and the body of a lion for the power of the eye. So that's the original figure of the Sphinx. They discovered recently corridors and passages underneath the Sphinx. Nothing was found inside, they were empty so far, but they're expecting to discover something definitely in those subterranean corridors. It was common to have things like this underneath most of the buildings and temples and so on for storing equipment, storing jewelry, expensive stuff, and some secret documents. So maybe we'll find something in the near future. But again, we are facing a serious problem with the quality of the stone, because it was eroded over the years, and actually not only us in the modern time did the restoration of the statue, but one of the early pharaohs, about 1400 BC, left us a piece of granite carving his story that he came hunting in the area when he was crown prince, and the statue was covered up to the neck in sand, and he had a dream that the god Ra came and told him that if you remove the sand and restore my statue, I'll make you the pharaoh of Egypt. So even in the ancient time, the statue was suffering a lot from natural sandstorms and water erosion and so on. So they are doing the same thing like at Saqqara with the pyramid, they're covering it from outside with new blocks of limestone. So it's not a mastaba because it was not used for burial or anything like this. Thank you for mentioning this. Right, so I hope, ladies and gentlemen, that you've enjoyed my little lecture, and I hope that it will give you a good idea about construction in Egypt. Thank you very much. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
If you would like to join us down there, or you first come in and have a cookie or a glass of wine, and even continue conversation or teaching, I'm sure we will welcome that.
Yeah, of course.
And thank you for coming.
By the way, if you would like to know about tomorrow's lecture, if you are interested and would like to come tomorrow, tomorrow is about festivals in Egypt and their roots in ancient Egypt. How festivals were we celebrate nowadays are linked to festivals in ancient Egypt, which is, it's not religion because we're going to have another session about religion later on, but tomorrow is mainly festivals in Egypt and how they are related to ancient Egypt. So I hope that you will enjoy it as well. Thank you very much. Thank you.